Vivien Leigh tells the truth about the split of Laurence Olivier. On November 5, 1913, Vivien Leigh was born as Vivien Mary Hartley into a wealthy Anglo-Indian family. She had a British father named Ernest Hartley and an Irish and Armenian mother named Gertrude Yaquier. Leigh has always been very interested in reading and performing arts. He often reads poems and acts in school plays. Her education in Catholic schools in France, Italy, and Germany, among other places, gave her a global view and the ability to speak many languages easily. Being exposed to different cultures as a child helped her develop poise and grace, which later became important parts of her acting style. Leigh decided to become an actor and went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London to study. Even though she was only there for a short time, it taught her discipline and how to be dedicated to her work. In the beginning, she played small parts in British movies, but her unique mix of fragility and fire helped her become known. Vivien Leigh became famous all over the world very quickly. She made her big break when she was cast as Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, 1939. It was the part that defined her career and earned her the first of 2 Academy Awards for Best Actress. At the time, it was controversial to cast Leigh, a British actor who wasn't very well known, as the classic Southern belle. But her powerful performance shut down both critics and audiences, as she gave the character an unmatched level of intensity, vulnerability, and depth. Through her acting, Scarlett became a complex character who was stubborn, smart, charming, and sadly human. Her role in Gone with the Wind made her famous all over the world and made her one of the most sought-after actors of her time. The movie itself became an important moment in movie history, and Leigh's performance as Scarlett is still one of the most famous in movie history. Leigh's connection with famous British actor Laurence Olivier was one of the most important parts of both her personal and professional life. They fell deeply in love even though they were both married at the time they met on the set of the 1937 movie Fire Over England. In the end, they got separated from their first wives and married in 1940. They were one of the most beautiful and skilled power couples in the history of the theater. In addition to their marriage, they worked together on many stage projects such as the famous plays Hamlet, Macbeth, Anthony, Cleopatra, and The School for Scandal. Their work together on stage often got good reviews, but their relationship was rough because Leigh was having mental health problems and the pressures of fame made things worse. Still, the way they worked together creatively made theater better and set new standards for how Shakespeare should be performed. Leigh was successful in movies other than Gone with the Wind. In 1951, she gave another tour de force performance as the emotionally weak and crazy Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire. Leigh showed how well she could play characters with a lot of psychological depth in this part, which was a lot like her own struggles. This performance earned her her second Academy Award, making her one of the best actors of all time. Leigh kept switching between stage and film roles throughout her career. At the theater, she wowed people in Titus Andronicus, The Skin of Our Teeth, and Tavarich. The second one won her a Tony Award in 1963. She was very versatile because she could easily switch between the grandeur of classical theater and the closeness of film acting. She put on amazing shows, but her personal life was full of terrible pain. For most of her adult life, Vivien Leigh dealt with bipolar illness, which was called manic depression back then. People with this illness had extreme mood swings, acted in strange ways, and went through deep depression at times. Because of these events, her marriage to Olivier became tense, and her career was hurt, and she missed chances and had to take breaks from acting and the movies. Leigh had problems with her mental health and also had cancer that she got in the 1940s and never got better. She kept working with amazing determination and professionalism, even though these conditions made it hard for her, often hiding her pain to give outstanding performances. Her strength in the face of hardship shows how dedicated she is to her art and how strong her spirit is. Vivien Leigh's last few years were marked by health problems that came and went, and appearances on stage and screen. In her last movie part, Ship of Fools, 1965, she got good reviews again. In the mid-1960s, her health quickly got worse because of repercussions from tuberculosis. At age 19, Vivien Leigh married Herbert Lee Holman, a well-known London barrister, who was 13 years older than her. The wedding took place in 1932. Holman was a traditionalist guy with a lot of age difference between him and the young, ambitious, and lively actress. From the start, their personalities and life goals did not get along. Leigh, whose real name was Vivien Mary Hartley, was already deeply interested in becoming a famous stage actor. She applied to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, RADA, to follow her dreams. But Holman had strong feelings against the theater world and didn't back her goals. His dislike of the performing arts and wish for a more normal family life caused a lot of trouble between the couple. Leigh made the hard choice to leave RADA too soon because he felt trapped and alone. Even though they didn't get along, the pair had a daughter named Suzanne in 1933. Leigh loved her daughter, but her job goals and growing involvement in the film and theater worlds kept her from doing her housework, which caused her and her husband to grow emotionally distant. Laurence Olivier, a British actor with a lot of charm and ability, became Vivien Leigh's passionate lover in 1937. Their relationship changed Leigh's life forever. They had met a few years before and worked together on stage, but it wasn't until they were shooting Fire Over England that their relationship really took off. People were very interested in and shocked by their relationship right away, even though both of them were still married at the time. To Holman, Leigh to Jill Esmond, and Olivier to Holman. Even though they really liked each other, they couldn't make their relationship official right away because their wives wouldn't let them get divorced. At that time, divorce was still seen as bad and hard to get. In Britain, the social climate made the idea of ending a marriage for love controversial and hard to do. Even though there were legal and social problems, Leigh and Olivier decided to break the rules and live together as a couple. They even went to the US to further their careers and get away from some of the judgment they faced in England. Many people thought it was scandalous that they lived together without being formally married, but they were deeply in love and committed to each other no matter what. However, it wasn't until 1940, after a long and difficult court case, that both Leigh and Olivier were finally able to get divorced from their wives. Now that the way was clear, the couple didn't wait to make their union official. They got married in Santa Barbara, California on August 31, 1940, in a small wedding that no one saw. They got married while they were both on tour in the US for a production of Romeo and Juliet. Only a few close friends, including Katharine Hepburn, were there. The public thought that their marriage was the height of glitz and theater genius. These are two of Britain's most renowned stars who are married and share a love for theater and movies. Behind the scenes, though, their friendship was anything but perfect. The stress of their jobs and Vivien Leigh's increasingly erratic behavior, which was later identified as bipolar disorder, put a lot of strain on their marriage. Leigh's severe mood swings, bouts of sadness, and emotional instability made it hard for Olivier to deal with things. His own cheating and anger made things worse between them, even though they were together for 20 years and were in several shows together. Their emotional connection slowly broke down due to mental illness, professional competition, and not getting along. Vivien Leigh was one of the most beautiful and talented actresses of the 20th century, but her life was ruined by bipolar disorder, which wasn't well known at the time and was often met with cruel mistreatment. Her illness wasn't just shown by random tears or episodes she couldn't predict. Instead, it affected every part of her life, both at work and at home, and it did so in ways that were often very painful and harmful. Her mood swings could be very bad, and a day of practices could become an emotional battlefield at times. However, her disease came with a different set of problems that were more private, taboo, and hard for other people to understand. Strong urges that you can't control, especially when it comes to closeness and desire. Leigh had an unquenchable need for physical touch during her manic episodes. She was sometimes desperate, often impulsive, and often hurt herself. There were more than just flirtations and secret messages during these scenes. Some of them were random meetings with cab drivers, delivery guys, and even strangers. She would get into a taxi more than once and make moves on the driver without trying to hide it. Her fame and appeal made the lines between right and wrong less clear. After all, she was Scarlett O'Hara, a woman who captivated and enchanted a whole generation. They must have wondered why she would refuse to say yes. Leigh had affairs with more than just guys. Small but persistent rumors spread that he was seeing or having sexual relations with women. Some of these reports were proven. Her sexuality seemed to change a lot and be based on a deep hunger rather than a taste. She needed to escape, feel, and hold on to something real as her emotions went up and down. These affairs didn't happen once in a while. They happened a lot, sometimes more than once in a single day. She was not so much living a life of luxury as one of duty. She couldn't find peace or happiness in even the most private times because of her disorder. Sir Laurence Olivier, her husband, brought in a talented young actor named Peter Finch while they were on a theater tour of Australia. Olivier, who was always on the lookout for new talent and wanted to improve acting, liked Finch's personality and potential and set up for him to perform on stage with them. But what started out as a business move quickly turned into a personal deception. It got so bad between Finch and Leigh that Olivier couldn't ignore it or stop it. Around 1948, Olivier was emotionally worn out, but he was still outwardly loyal. He had to deal with Leigh's extreme mood swings, violent attacks, and constant cheating. For years, she was sick, and it was wearing him down. He started to feel a mix of acceptance and relief. In his quiet times, he told his close friends that he could no longer emotionally or physically meet her needs. Both her mental and sexual needs had become too much for her to handle, and his love had grown weak from the constant chaos. Looking back on things years later, Peter Finch said that being with Vivien Leigh was like being drunk. A high that is as strong and fun to use as any drug, he said. At first, he was spellbound by her beauty, charm, and passion, and couldn't stay away from her. But after a while, he too got tired. Things that used to feel like love started to feel like sickness. He came to think that the fact that she couldn't be happy, even in the hottest relationships, was a sign of something deeper and more sad. A hole that could never really be filled by a person's touch. It was just as hard on her body as it was on her mind. Through selfless service to the Allies in North Africa during World War II in 1943, Vivien Leigh caught TB. It was a serious case, and even though she was admitted, the care she got was incomplete and not enough in the end. By 1944, the doctors thought she was better and let her go, but the infection stayed dormant and slowly hurt her health for years to come. Leigh had to run across a shiny studio floor while carrying a small child while shooting Caesar and Cleopatra in 1945. She slipped and fell very hard, which was not fair. The accident caused a miscarriage, which was a terrible loss that sent her into a deep, scary sadness. Leigh couldn't calm down for months afterward. She would lie on the floor, curled up, and cry uncontrollably, like a child who has been hurt. Her sadness seemed to take over her whole body. Her sleep habits became erratic. Her mind would race and keep her awake for days. Her behavior changed all the time and was sometimes scary. She would yell obscenities at actors and team members and then storm off the set. During one breakdown, she couldn't speak clearly and cried and mumbled for hours in her dressing room. At some point, the episodes got so bad that sedation was often needed. Olivier set up for her to go back to England because she was desperate and had no other choice. In that place, he sent her to a hospital because he was scared and didn't know what to do. Vivien was locked up in a mental hospital for 3 months, and had to go through repeated rounds of electroconvulsive therapy, which was also known as electroshock treatment at the time. People didn't care about the procedure's side effects when it was done, and it left permanent physical and mental scars. She had marks on her temples, and her memory and brain power were never the same after that. We now know that this kind of care hurt a lot more than it helped, but in the 1940s, it was seen as a last resort for mentally sick people, a last resort in a last resort world. Her breakdowns got worse and happened more often as the years went by. During one especially scary episode, Leigh left her house naked and walked around London streets before going to a public park. She had no idea what people would think of her or how it would affect their lives. During another fight, she hit Olivier with a wet towel, which made him physically restrain her. He would later say that he did this to protect himself from her out-of-control behavior. He said he had done everything he could, but he was tired and a person. Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier's marriage finally fell apart after more than 20 years of marriage. The emotional toll of having to deal with her sickness was too much for her. Olivier moved on with actor Joan Plowright, and they would marry in the end. Leigh's heart was broken, but she still wanted to be with someone, so she started a passionate but troubled relationship with actor Jack Marivelle. Marivelle was a kind and stable person in her later years, even though she would never get married again. It is said that Olivier told Marivelle, "Take care of her," because he still felt faithful or guilty. Leigh knew that her illness could never be cured, only managed with love, patience, and kindness. On the night of July 7, 1967, she passed out on the floor of her room and Marivelle found her dead. The Golders Green crematorium burned her body, and her ashes were spread in a lake in Sussex.